Good morning, everybody. Today is Monday, April 4th. This is class 15 for CADD 212. Today in class, we're going to be going over the following information. At this point in our project, we're moving into the design development phase. What does that mean? This is the phase in architectural plans and specifications where you're trying to get to 50% complete for all your plans. This generally includes outline of your specifications. We're obviously not doing specifications, but in your floor plan particularly, it has to do with getting to a point where you have the majority of your work done. We should be moving out of the schematic design phase, where we have everything kind of laid out and kind of sketched out a design and know where we're going on here, and where we're actually moving towards developing our design towards a finished product. All your ideas should be finished as far as how you want to lay out your floors and have all that done. So once we have our floor layout, we want to move into actually kind of getting our full set of documents done. So during this phase, we'll be working on our room designations, our wall types, our ratings, building sections, heights and dimensions, interior elevations, with an overall set of plans, you're actually getting your preliminary structural, mechanical, electrical drawings completed as well. But it's really, we should be at a point where you're finished your floor plans and we're actually moving into creating your full set of documents. So some of the things that we're going to be going over today that'll move us towards that point, we'll be going over section views. We'll be talking about interiors a little bit more, how we're going to do our finished floors. We're also going to talk about painting. We know how to paint a one-story, but if you've tried to paint your like three-story building now, you'll notice that there's some issues with that as well. So we'll talk about how to do that, and that'll be solved by splitting the walls horizontally. And then we're going to be moving into some advanced stuff, and we're going to be creating dormers on your building today and talk about how we'll incorporate that into your overall design plan. With that being said, we'll go ahead and jump into class. I want to talk about the next mod that we're going to be done, that's going to be worked on, which is their design development phase mod. If you did turn in work for your schematic design phase, I already went over that, and if there were any issues, I made comments on that. Basically, a lot of it was still in the developmental phase, so make sure that you're still working on your drawings and getting those submitted. If you want me to take a look at your schematic phases, still turn those in under the schematic design mod, and I can go back and take a look at that. Shoot me an email or a text letting me know that you've resubmitted it under schematic design, and I can take a review of that for you as well. This next section for design development that we're moving into is not going to be due for 2 weeks. So we're going to be working 2 weeks in design development, where we really kind of flush out your design work and get to a point where hopefully all of your work is done. After this, we're going to be moving into CD phase, which is construction documents, and we'll talk about that. And that's basically just making sure all of your plans and drawings are complete and getting ready to, say, submit it to a bid. What we're going to go over today, let's see. Actually, let me read through this information on here so you know what to expect over the next 2 weeks. So we're going to talk about dormers, standing seam metal roofs, section views, interiors, and advanced sites. So we're going to be moving into a little bit more advanced stuff. For your model, you're going to include 3 10-foot wide dormers spaced evenly along the south elevation. We're going to create standing seam metal roofs. We're going to create 4 section views. We're going to create an interior plan for the first floor. We're also going to create a site. The site it'll be an advanced site, including elevations. We'll learn about parking lots and how to create a large parking lot for this large building that we're creating. So that's pretty much an overview of what to expect over the next 2 weeks. So let's go ahead and jump into today's work. And we'll start with the easy stuff with the section views and the interiors. And then dormers are a multi-step function. So I'm going to concentrate a little bit more on that today. So let's just jump into section views and the other two. All right, let's go to Revit. And I just got somebody's project open here. We'll take a quick look at it in 3D, see what it looks like. So a couple of things that just catch my eye really quickly here. And granted, this is, not, we're still have a lot of work to go on here, which is fine, which is early in the design phase. Still have our stairs here, still need your curtain wall here, which is fine. Still have a lot of work to do, but that's okay. But the rest of it is looking really good. Notice we changed, we have a different type of exterior cladding. What I would think about doing here is maybe adding an overhang on this building. If you like the flush look, that's fine. You can do that as well, just an idea. What I also like about this one is that all the windows are lined up really nicely. Sometimes when we're looking at creating our building and we're not thinking about the interior and the exterior at the same time, sometimes we'll have windows that are lined up very oddly. And I'd like you to go back and revisit that. So you may have one like that looks like this, and then another one that looks like this, and they're kind of off. So that's not something that you typically see in an office space or in any kind of building. It just looks like your dimensions are off and it looks a bit confusing, unless that is your actual design where you want to have each one kind of off spaced, say maybe like 4 foot each one this way, and you see some balance and symmetry in it. Then it makes a little bit more sense. But a couple of people's designs that I've looked at so far just looks like the windows are kind of arbitrarily spaced. So I'd go back, and even that is not a great look, even though they are kind of, it makes a little bit more sense. Think about also the way your exterior looks compared to your interior. And a couple of you go back and revisit how you have your windows laid out, and think about getting them more balanced and stuff. That was one of probably the biggest things that I saw, that a lot of people had just kind of placed the windows arbitrarily, it seemed like, or spaced them how they'd seen they would be most appropriate on the interior of the space. But you also want to think about how that's reflected on the exterior of the space. So besides that, this looks good. Good start to everything. Let me go back and undo all that. I think we're good. All right, back to normal. All right, so what are we going to do when we look at section views, and what are section views for? Well, section views are call outs in your drawings, and think back to that set of drawings that we looked at the beginning of class that are going to show us that specific internal space. They're specifically just like you do in AutoCAD, where you're cutting a piece of material or cutting a widget in half, so you can see what the interior of it looks like, that section part. It's the same with architectural models. So we want to do the same here. And really the most important part about the section views is thinking about what you want to look at. What do you want to call out? What's the important thing that you want to show when you create a section view? A lot of times it's the way a wall is built, the way a whole section of a wall is built. So let's just make a couple of section views. Let's talk about how we create them, and then what's the best way to use them. So the most important thing about a section view is that it's a section view and it must intersect the building. I have had section views that are like coming out here that people have drawn, that's not a section view. The section view must intersect the building at some point. So if we started out here and we just dragged it through here, you can see that the section view is going this way. To jump back a step, there's a couple of places that we can find a section view. We can find it on our quick access toolbar, which is this little tool right here, our section view tool, or we can also find it in the view tab, the create panel, and the section view tool right here. So you can create a section right there. A couple of different things about sections and about the tag itself. If we click on the tag, you'll notice that there's a lot of things that we can do to move this around. These points on the end where you can circle through the type of ending that you want. Say if I wanted this on the other side, I could circle through here, and then I could have this positioned up here. And you may want to, and it just depends on how busy your drawing gets of where you want these placed. If you have like all your dimensions down here, you don't necessarily want this intersecting with all your dimensions. Once again, it's a thought process about what's the best way to have your drawing laid out, that it's easy for people to read. And say you put in your section view and it's actually facing the wrong direction. You actually wanted it to face the other direction. Well, we can use our toggles and just flip that in the other direction. And say we didn't want this to come all the way through here. We only wanted it to focus on this part. Well, we can shrink that back that way. And when we do that, we also want to move the view as well. So this is basically the view space that I'm looking at here, the view field. Granted, we're not looking at anything back here, but if this wall wasn't here, we'd be able to look through to this section. So I could actually kind of just scooch this back. This isn't as important because this wall is going to intersect that. So let's go and just click on the point here, and that'll bring us right to that view, that section view that we just created. Section views, when you put them on your sheets, when you're creating your construction documents, are always going to be in hidden line view. You don't want this in color. Sometimes it's nice to put it in a consistent color just to see what's going on. If you have something that's you want to bring your attention to here, sometimes it's easier to see this in a color view. What we're going to talk about too is also putting a finished floor, not a finished floor, a third floor above here, because right now we just have a ceiling. There's nothing that's supporting that. So you can see that we have a floor here, a floor here. You've got your ceiling lined up nicely where it's supposed to be. And then we just have the ceiling here. So we'll talk about that as well, how we can add a floor to that, say for attic space. All right. So also on this section view, if you did not want the entire section of the building shown, you can click on the view box, and then you can kind of shrink it down. So if you just wanted to accentuate this wall right here, you can do that. And notice as soon as we create any section views, they're automatically going to be populated in your project browser. So let's do a couple more. I'm going to go jump back to level 1. And create another section view. I wouldn't go all the way across the building this time. And I'll just leave that as is. Well, actually, let me pull this back here to show you what happens there. So I'll leave everything the same. I just shrunk that view field. And now when I go and click on the tip of this, this is what I'm looking at. It looks like a truncated view. It looks strange. And that's because that view field has been shortened. So let's go back to change that view field. And now we'll go back to section 2 and notice how it has filled out all that missing information. So sometimes if your view field looks weird, go back and check that just to make sure that your view is encompassing all of that information that you want it to show. And let's do a couple more. Say if I just wanted to create a small one here. I want this to face the other direction, and I want this to also include this door. But I only want it to show that section. And there you have your view field. And if there is, you know, something particular about this door that you wanted to show off, then you could do that. One of the things I like to see when you're creating your section views is I like to see a section view of your stairwell, how that looks, and then also with your curtain wall behind it, because that's always an interesting view. You can incorporate that. Besides that, you can make, you know, section views wherever you want, but I do like to see the stairwell with the curtain wall incorporated into it. All right. So we have our section views. Let's do one more. And let's do it of this room right here. Actually, let's do it like this. So we'll cover this section. Let's go to section 4. And say we wanted that just of the second floor. Here we could just isolate that second floor view. And that way you would just have that on the second floor. Then when we incorporate these into our sheets, we could elaborate on what this view is showing us. And we could go from there. We'll talk about that a little bit more of how we want to elaborate on that when we move into construction documents. So section views are pretty easy. Notice how here, since I've ran this one, and it's on level 2, it's not showing on my level 1. But since these run through the other building, it shows, and here's my level 2 section view. So if you put your section views in now and you find that they're in your way when you start drawing everything, you can turn those off by using visibility graphics. So we can go to visibility graphics and annotation categories. And if we scroll down to sections, we can turn those off and they're out of your way so you don't see them. You do have to do this per level, or you can do temporary hide isolate to do that as well. But a lot of times I just find it's easier to do section views. If I do section views a little later in your process, but I just wanted to show you that now because it does come in very handy when you're trying to work on different areas of your building, especially when we start putting in furniture and things and you want to have a look at it, how it looks in that particular view. Any questions about section views? Cool. All right, so next we'll move into interiors. We've actually gone over finished floors a lot. You do know to put in finished floors on your first, second, and third floor to create that. But let's talk more specifically about painting and how we're going to create that in a three story building. All right, let's jump to 3D. I'm going to do an angle view. I'm going to hide this, hide a couple things. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's go to level 4. I'm going to hide this roof. And then we can just put in another floor here so it looks complete. Just do another floor, the wood joist floor. Check mark. Don't attach. 3D. Let's see how that looks. I'll go to a side view. And then we just have, oh, that fit in really nicely with whose ever ceiling this is. It's just kind of laid right in, on that spot. So you can add that additional floor for your attic space. So let's hide this. And then once again, you're going to do the same thing here, just adjust your wall heights at this point. Looks good. All right. So what are we doing? Oh, painting, that's right, paint. So remember when we paint, we go to the Manage tab and Materials tool, and we create the paint that we want here. So let me just create a new one, create new material. Oops. Okay. And we'll go to the asset browser and just pick a paint. Let's just use this. Graphics tab, use render appearance, and okay. And now that I have that material in there, I can go ahead and paint. And then I can go ahead and jump to modify, go to the geometry panel and my paint tool, and I'll pick that paint I just created. And when we do that, it's going to encompass that entire wall. That's because we haven't divided it up into wall sections or anything like that yet. But say I just wanted it to cover this particular room right here. Actually, let's do this particular room right here in the middle. And that way we can select it a little bit more. So let me unpaint that. Remove paint. And I'm going to go to my level 2. And it's this building, this room right here we want to paint. So remember, we're going to use our split element tool. Looks like it's a little X-Acto knife. And I'm going to split where it intersects the walls. And now when I go back to 3D, and I'll paint again. Well, it didn't paint all these walls down here, but it did paint this section down here and this part right here, which I didn't want painted. Well, how do I fix that? Let's go ahead and undo again. Before we do that, we want to actually use the same tool. We want to use our split element tool from a straight view, not an angled view. Use the split element tool, and this time we're going to cut it horizontally where the walls intersect the floors. And now when we go back, we can just paint this wall section right here, and it hasn't painted anything else. So it's a lot of sectioning and things like that. You can paint it any which way you want. You do have to incorporate some paint into here. You can do the floors, one color for the first floor, second floor, third floor, accent colors. That's all part of your design concept. But I do want to see different paint so I know that you can intersect, how to section off just the second or third floor to create that paint color. But that's probably, I know a few people have tried to paint, and that's probably, this is what was missing in order to create that paint that you wanted it to look like just in those rooms. So that one's pretty easy. Any questions about that before we move on? All right, cool. So let's move on to our big topic for today, which is how to create dormers. And just for definition, let me pull up an example of what we're going to create. So This is actually what we're looking to create, these dormer windows right here. So you can see the big design aspect of these buildings. Now, you have to have a sloped roof in order to incorporate this type of dormer into your roof. A couple of people have already made flat roofs or changed their concept of their roofs, which is great. And those of you who do not want a dormer as part of your overall large building design, what we're going to do to fix that is you're going to create like another small building on your site that's going to show your how to create a dormer and how to create a standing seam metal roof. So how are we going to do that? We'll go to level 1. Actually, instead of confusing this with the other one, we're going to start a new file. Let me start a new file. You're going to keep, I'll do it 2 ways. I'll show you how to create it first in a separate file, and then how to incorporate it into your actual building. So if you don't want it as part of this building right here, we're going to start a separate file. So we'll do File, New, Project, Architectural Template. So this will be like an auxiliary building that you're creating. And you can use this to incorporate your dormers and your standing seam metal roofs as part of your design work, because a lot of you with the flat roofs, I like the way you're moving with those designs, and I don't want you to have to change that for those. Let me throw a roof on here. Overhang on there. We've got a 3D, and we've got something simple like this, just a simple building. So what I'm going to do is create a dormer on here. And how we create a dormer is we're actually going to start by adding some additional elevations. So let me go to my south view, south elevation. These are always so far out. I'm going to pull these in a little bit just because it just makes it better for me to look at. So remember if we're going to add elevations, we're going to go to our Architecture tab, our Datum panel, and our Level tool. And I'm just going to add a couple of elevations now. What this is basically equivalent to, this one I'm drawing here, and connect that, is equivalent to the bottom of the dormer I'm creating. And right here, I'm just putting this in to the top of the dormer I'm creating. So it's equivalent to this point right here and this point right here. And then I'm going to add the roof. So if I've added my 2 dormer levels, at this point I can change the name of these. I actually want to change this to dormer bottom. Or I should put dormer base. And do you want to rename all the corresponding views? Yes, I want that to populate throughout the rest of the model. I'm going to move this so it's a little, doesn't intersect with that. And I'm going to call this dormer top. Yes. And the next thing I'm going to do, notice how it populated this information here in floor plans, is I'm actually going to go to my dormer base level. And this is where I'm going to start drawing the walls for my dormer. I'm going to go to Architecture tab, Wall tool. And at this point, I'm just going to start drawing I'm going to draw 3 walls because part of the dormer charm is that it's open to this part of the building. So you can place a window here and view out of it. So you don't want to close it. You want to keep that open. So it's just going to be 3 sections there. Let's go to 3D, see how we're looking. All right. Sometimes you'll notice when you create this that your front wall may extend too far out and it's not incorporated into this rooftop. Let me change the direction so I can see what I mean. I've had it when people start drawing this and it looks like the wall is actually out to here. So obviously that's not going to work. There's a few different ways that we can fix that. We can change the level of the dormer so it's lower and it will be more incorporated into the roof, or we can start a little further back like we did on this one, and how it's further back and it's still encapsulated into the roof, but can't be outside of the roof space itself. It has to be incorporated into the roof. And we have a little gap right here between the front, the back end of this wall and the front of the roof, but we'll take care of that in a second. For now, we'll just go ahead and continue along this way. So a couple of things that we can do to fix this, these walls so they're like the height that we want. Remember, I can take the height of this wall. It's the base constraint is dormer base. Well, I can change that top constraint to dormer top. And I'll just do that with both of those. So now we have the height of that dormer there. So next thing I'm going to do is go to dormer base view. And on dormer base view, I'm going to create my roof, because notice on dormer top view, the way it intersects, I can't see it. So I'm going to just draw it on my dormer base. So at this point, I'm going to go to my roof tool. I'm just going to do a 1 foot overhang. And I want a slope on this side and a slope on this side. I don't want a slope in the front. I want a gable in the front. So I'll click that there. Notice this is just click the 3 walls. Well, I need to do another line back here, because notice if I hit a check, my check mark here, it won't do anything. So I need to actually close that space. And at this point, I'm just going to draw that line. I'm going to use my trim tool and trim off those ends. And hit my green check mark. And let's go to 3D and take a look at what that looks like. So doesn't look like much. So a couple things we need to do to change that. Let's click on that roof and let's change that base level to dormer top. Starting to come along nicely. Notice how this particular roof is higher than this roof here. Well, since it's so close to the edge, it's going to give us some issues there. So I'm going to change this roof to a lower slope. Let me try 612. And now I still have a protrusion over here on this end. So that's not optimal. All right. I just changed the slopes of those roofs. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to join this roof to this roof. So from an angle, I'm going to go to Modify tab, to my geometry panel, and this Join Roof tool right here. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on the back part of the roof. Then I want to click it to the roof I want to connect it to. And those will just pull those together like that. At this point, I want to select these walls. and connect them to this roof. So connect this one, attach top to base, attach top to base, and attach top to base. So once we get all that done, we still have to actually cut the hole in the roof to create that dormer space. Because right now, if we look through here, all we see is the roof. So we want to be able to put a window here and have this accessible. So the next thing we want to do is create that dormer. So we're going to go to Architecture tab. Opening panel and the dormer tool. And this is actually what cuts the roof to create an opening for the dormer. So we're going to click on that. We're going to click on the roof that we want to cut. And now we're going to pick the wall edges that we want to have intersected. What are you doing? All right, so notice I've picked all those edges around that dormer. I'm going to use my trim tool to get rid of those extra lines there. Oh, wait. Trim tool. Connect these here and hit my green check mark. And now if I hide this roof, I should be able to see through into the building. And voila. So we do have an open dormer right there at this point. Let's go ahead and put everything back. Let's go to dormer base level. Here we'll go to windows. I'll just select a window. I'll drop that window there. Let's go to 3D. And now we have a nice simple dormer. So lots of steps involved with that, but the outcome is usually pretty interesting. And then we could lay out a couple more here spaced along the building. You want to get those dimensions laid out. So this, I would suggest those of you who don't want it incorporated into your actual building design for the 3-story commercial building, do a separate project for that. And then on this one, we can also incorporate the standing seam metal roof. So if you do want it incorporated into your actual commercial building, let's go ahead and do that now. Let's go back to this other project in 3D and let's do that again. All right, so let's go back to our, excuse me, south elevation. And here we're just going to do the same. We're going to add those 2 additional levels. Architecture tab, data panel, level tool. And we'll connect those. Dormer base. All right, so we have our levels. Let's go to our dormer base plan. At this point here, I'll go ahead and to the wall tool. And find their exterior wall. And here's their midpoint. And right now, without me knowing the dimensions, it is kind of just arbitrary, me picking these spots. But what you'll want to do is make sure that you have your dimensions correctly so everything's balanced out. There we go. So I drew my 3 walls. Let's go back to 3D. I got something that looks like that. Actually, these walls are inside out. So I'm going to go back to dormer base. I'm going to flip these around so it looks better as I'm creating it. Back to 3D. All right, looks better. So let's select these 3, Control key, and set that to dormer top. Ooh, that is very small, especially for the height of this building. So what can we do to fix that? Let's change this to 45. Too tall. Let's change it to 41. Let's see if 41 works. So yeah, that looks better just scale wise. If on the sides, I am within the building itself, the roof. So next thing I want to do is I want to go back to my dormer base. I'm going to go ahead and create that dormer roof. So back to roof tool. I'm going to put a 1-foot overhang on that. I don't want a slope in the front. I want a gable. And I'm just going to close off that back end by drawing that line and trimming that off. Check mark, 3D. Let's take that roof and move that to dormer top. And let's take a front view. All right, it's way off. I'm going to go ahead and change the slope of that to 3. See what we're looking at. Barely. Let's try 2. All right. There we go. That works. So let's go ahead and connect this roof to this roof. In order to do that, we'll go to the Modify tab, Geometry panel, Join Roof tool, click on the back of the dormer roof and connect it to the larger roof. That'll pull those together. Let's go to our right view. We still have a gap between these 2 walls, this wall and this roof. So in here, typically I don't like to do this, but we can just pull those together at this point. So we have that completely closed. Let's go ahead and attach top to base on these guys. right, those are all attached. And the next thing we need to do is just create that dormer opening. So architecture tab, opening panel, dormer tool. I want to cut an opening in the larger roof, and I'm going to do that by sectioning off this smaller section. Now, sometimes it works without trimming. Let's see if it does. And it actually did. So it's sometimes it'll work when it's trimmed. So if you lay it out and you hit the green check mark and it doesn't work, just go back and make sure that you just trim those areas out. But in this case, it actually did work, so that's nice. And now we have an opening in the roof for that dormer. And at this point, I'd go ahead and put in a window. Let's go to my dormer base, go back, and we'll just put in that same window. All right, it's not balanced very well, but you get the point. And that is how we create a dormer. That's going to be frustrating for y'all the first couple of times you try to do it. Don't do it within your actual project itself. Do a practice project outside like we did here. But it is a cool tool to know, and but it does take a little practice, and it's just one of those things where if you miss one step, if one thing doesn't connect, it'll drive you a little crazy. So just give it some time and some practice on that, and just follow the steps and you'll be fine. Sometimes I've had students say that it helps if they actually go through the video, write down the steps, and then when they go back and actually do it, it works a lot more smoothly for them to do that. But that is it for class today. What I'd like you to do is continue working on your project. Nothing is going to be due for 2 weeks, so you definitely have time to develop everything. If you need me to review anything prior to the 2 weeks, shoot me a text, and then we can get together and I can review your work for you. If you want to go ahead and submit it ahead of time, I'll review it as well, but shoot me a text so I know that you've submitted it and you just want me to check it out and see how things are progressing, because that's typically what we do in class, just to check your progress on here. But all of y'all that are in class are doing, are keeping up really well. So just keep up the good work. And anyone who feels like they're a little bit behind, if you want to reach out to me and talk to me about it, just let me know and we can kind of go from there. Before we drop for today, any questions, y'all? All right, if no questions, we'll go ahead and end class. I'll get this posted today and just keep working on your renovations. I'm looking forward to seeing your progress. All right.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Take care, y'all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.